And thinking more about how to be data driven, but perhaps also data or AI driven in a company like SAP. I guess we could talk about like AI strategies, or if they have some kind of well thought out plan from an organizational point of view to start with, at least.
AI strategies.
Yes.
Next topic. Love it.
Is there such a strategy, or is it? Do you have in SAP some kind of idea of what the strategy should be to accelerate AI in SAP?
Yeah, so we did some work on that last year, and I think we found I didn't realize it at the time, but someone told me that it's brilliant, and it wasn't just my idea. There was a big working group of experts doing this, but we've decided to have a strategy that's simple. The strategy is just that we integrate into the business plan. So we have the business strategy.
Let's explore that a bit more. What do you mean?
Yeah. So you have the business strategy. People are used to doing their sort of yearly planning. They have a good process for that. They do that. And what we want to add now is that once they're done with that, they think about what data do we need in order to actually achieve our business strategy.
As a normal part of building the business strategy, you also consider data and AI.
Yeah, it's like a small add-on. It's like, okay, so what data do we need in order to be, better at something? And then, okay, so are there any kind of machine learning things that we should be doing? Is there some sort of an AI system that we could look into acquiring or using in order to accelerate the business plan even further? So it could be like one of our aims is to create operational excellence. And that means that we want to increase efficiency. We want to use our data in better ways or more ways. And we want to create processes that are as lean as possible. And in there, you can just start to feel how many different kinds of algorithms you could be applying.
So what is the AI perspective of reaching that business strategy?
Yeah. So the AI, that specific business strategy, I would say that it's a lot about adding smartness to automation, for instance.
Yeah.
It's a lot about actually focusing on, removing as many manual processes as possible, but like identifying areas where it's fine that the probability isn't 100 all the time. So it's very much that in that specific area. Then when it comes to like advisory excellence, then you have all the different kinds of advices that you want to give the clients and all of the sort of recommender engine-ish perspectives.
So but this really resonates with me. And personally, I've had a quite hard time when I hear the management consultants talk about you need your AI strategy in order to work. And in Vattenfall, we actually made on group level, on the presentation to the board, we made a declaration that is going very closely in this direction. We say there is no AI strategy. There's only business strategy attuned for a AI-ready world. So I think it's exactly the same, that we need to start with the business problem we are trying to solve and then understand the AI applications out of that. Of course, then someone will argue, but what's your tactics to implement or to mature AI? That's what we mean with strategy. Do you have something like that? More like how to, but you're more pushing it that we really need to find a business problem that could work, or?
Yeah.
Because what is an AI strategy? I mean, like start even there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would say that probably in the AI strategy, it's important to identify what areas will be relevant for financial services. Maybe we never, probably we never want to do facial recognition because that wouldn't make sense for us. Probably sort of self-driving cars, not sure that's going to be our core product going forward. So I think it's very much that sort of identifying what areas we believe would be beneficial for the business strategy and for the business as a whole. I don't know if that's...
But you said something earlier before. We can... You had some insights into the AI strategy of Finland.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is if we segue from SAP as an organization and think more nationally.
But still AI strategy, but you said something to us before the camera was on. Components of what makes it successful is also something about AI strategy without, so maybe we could go here.
Because you do have a Finnish background as well, and Finland has their AI strategy, and Sweden has, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think Finland is ahead. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, I think definitely. So I met with a person who was working with the AI strategy of Finland when I was there a couple of years ago. I go home more often than twice every second year. So I met with him and we were kind of discussing what the work entailed that they did and what because he was very proud of the work that they've done. And I completely agree. I think what they came up with in the AI strategy, it's very crisp. There's a clear financing for it. There's a clear sort of focus and the kind of centers that they created for the AI strategy to be enabled. They were given some sort of power to actually force other parts of the society to change. And I think like one of the first things they did was that they funded this like AI, I guess, recommender system for life, where you can come in and you sort of describe your life situation, and then you get all of the different governmental benefits that you can get. You get all the rules that you need to adhere to. You get like a really good sort of
what a
feeling.
simple product.
Yeah. And quite often the simplicity is where the keys lie. And I think it was really smart to do that as the first part of the AI strategy, because you're winning some positive emotion from the citizens of the country as well. You're building something that's immediately beneficial for them. So it becomes less scary.
But there is a couple of things, sorry. I mean, like here we have an AI strategy, but actually the way they frame it is also, it's a little bit strategy to execution.
Yeah.
That what's the financing behind it? Like, can we please put some action behind the words and some resources behind the words? So in this sense, I guess to formulate an AI strategy with substance is quite interesting what they've done in Finland.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, I mean, from an organizational perspective, the budget would be expected to follow the business plan.
Yes.
Whereas from a governmental perspective,
How do you do
it's steered in such a different way.
Yes.
You actually need to have like a proper focused budget for building a center where you do AI and you exist in order to educate others on AI.
But that's maybe the downside of the problem, catch-22, with having a business-centric AI strategy. If the business is not so data savvy, so they can formulate AI opportunities.
Yeah.
So then you need to help them a lot there, I guess.
Yeah, we do.
You do?
Yeah, and I think we're trying to not build huge organizations anymore. We're trying to much more create sort of ambassadors and people who just fall in love with some topic and giving them the time to learn a little bit about it and become sort of the internal spokespeople.
Yeah, evangelists style.
Yeah, a little bit. Evangelists or just super nerdy people who have no communication skills but are really interested. For me, it's more that. You don't need to be like
And moving a bit to Sweden then, we have met a number of times in various events, and especially the AI agenda work, I think, that you were a central part of as well. And perhaps can move a bit into the AI agenda. Can you speak to a bit about, what is the purpose and what has been done and things like that?
Yeah. So, the AI agenda is coordinated by RISE. I think in the beginning we were kind of discussing the issue with not having an AI strategy in Sweden.
We have something in Sweden called nationell inriktning, I think it's called, but it's not backed by the budget.
So what is a national AI strategy? How would we frame it? What do we think that consists of? Because you can have inriktning, for me it's a little bit fluffy. What do we mean with an AI strategy for let's start there, the AI agenda. What's the purpose and what?
For me, you can fill in then, but at least having a strategy that is backed by some funding and some action points.
So basically, strategy cannot only be words; it needs to be backed with fundamentals like funding. Yeah. Otherwise, we don't have a strategy. So words or a report without funding is not an AI strategy, is it?
That's just a report.
It's just a report, right?
So many reports. But there are good reports, though.
So the definition of a proper AI strategy is it has to be something, a direction, but there is substance to execute on it. Otherwise, it's not really a strategy. Yeah. Or?
I would say so, yeah.
I think so.
If you look at some of the country's AI strategies, France's is probably the craziest one because it's written by a mathematician.
It's really cool, by the way.
Cool. It's super cool. But Germany's is sort of really focused on the automotive industry because that's the main sector for Germany. And then they speak a lot about what they don't want people to do within that area and what they think people should be doing, like within the AI area. Finland is quite the same. It's really well sort of defined. These these areas. We believe AI is beneficial for these areas. We believe that we should be focusing on them, and here's money, and here's the possibility to build.
And both private sector and public sector.
Yeah.
Like a state AI strategy needs to have a view on how to support private and public, maybe.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, they created something similar to AI Sweden, but I think with a bit more punch, potentially. Not because...
It's called AI Hub or something? Or what's it called?
Yeah. And this has not... I'm not saying in any way whatsoever that the people working in AI Sweden, they're very, very confident. I'm talking about the budget, just to be clear.
I'm part of that. So. No, just to mention France, I think they've done a number of awesome things, and Germany and UK as well with the sector deal and whatnot. But
tell us a little bit, because
but these mathematicians.
Tell us about this story, because I don't think so
Cedric,
many people.
Villani,
right?
Yeah.
And I remember he actually came to AI Sweden once and spoke, and then we had some
You
Swedish.
missed that.
But he was very inspiring, and it was really fun to listen to him. And you can tell he's very knowledgeable, of course, as well.
But what's the twist here? Like, educate us on what's the France strategy in a nutshell. So how is it different when a mathematician writes it?
It's 300 pages.
You go nerdy, right? Love it.
Yeah.
And a lot of funding. I think it's up to like 3 billion euros or something. It's a lot of money. But the AI agenda, then I think we shouldn't complain about the Swedish approach a lot. I think we are doing a lot of good things, especially in the latest times.
Yeah.
That are moving in a very good direction, I think.
Yeah.
And just speaking about the AI agenda a bit more. So it started for a year ago or something? Or was it?
Something. I think that we had like the formal kickoff in Almedalen. And then, so we decided to split it up into different work streams. One of them was industry, thinking about like the potential of AI applications in industry. And I was the work stream coordinator, and you were part of that work stream, giving very good and valid suggestions and advice.
One more glass of wine to her.
Yeah, please, sir.
And then like research and education and infrastructure and sort of the public space and us as citizens. And I think it's been a really cool journey, because in the beginning there was maybe not so many people, and then it's a completely open collaboration. So whoever's interested is kind of invited to join a relevant work stream where you feel that you can sort of contribute. And I think for me personally, the biggest sort of eye-opener was when Elin Alstiok joined our team. So she comes from this Stolthetsbyrån. She doesn't have a specific background in AI, but she very much brought in sort of the human aspects. And I hadn't realized how geeky we were, because it was just people working with AI in the industry work stream. And I think getting Elin in and her questioning us very friendlily about what we were talking about, I think it was really good in order to make the AI agenda pedagogical, because it's meant to be for everyone. Right. I don't know if you agree.
Absolutely. I'm a very geeky person as well, so it's so hard sometimes to have the bigger picture and be able to communicate it in proper terms, so to speak.
Yeah, like how to communicate it in a good pedagogical way without dumbing down the real complexity. Not simplifying in the wrong way. This is hard.
Yeah.
So we started for over a year ago. We had a number of groups. We put together this kind of report, presentation. It was presented to the Swedish Parliament, right? It's going to Brussels now, right?
Yeah, it's really fun.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's like, I think there's like 50 people or something in the collaboration, and people with completely different backgrounds, completely different interests. We have the trade unions are part of it. So it's really this wonderful opportunity to have very sort of high level and deep discussions about what we should be doing with AI in Sweden, and kind of identifying areas that we believe that we should change in some way or would benefit from doing things in other ways than we do them today. And I think the kind of current result of that is that we have and a concrete AI agenda. It exists as a physical document.
A manifesto almost.
Yeah, almost. And
a web page.
Yeah,
a web page.
Yeah. And a web page. And it's really good for like, I mean, there's a lot of opinion making going on about AI, and some of it is very detrimental because it's not based on facts. And then it's quite nice to have this document that anyone who wants to, for instance, respond to an EU white paper or wants to lobby or talk to people about the potential possibilities with AI, you have this document, and it's not for signing, it's for using, and it's probably going to change over time as well.
Yeah. And we also have this list of action points, which I think is important. You know, if you want to have some kind of strategy that actually can be executed, like a set of, I think it's 28 different suggestions that we have provided so far.
Yeah.
And how in practice? Good. So there's some like who is funding it, or how do we fund the actual work gets done, or is it all on voluntary basis? I don't know the background.
I mean, it's both in kind, of course, from a lot of companies, both in industry and academia and public sector, but it's otherwise financed by Vinnova, of course.
Yeah, Vinnova,
the government-based innovation agency. So it has some proper funding, and I think it's just important and great that we did recognize the problem and are executing on it, and in a rather short period of time have actually been able to produce quite a lot of work, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I kind of like the Swedish approach. It's like getting consensus on different questions, but doing it super fast. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm kind of hesitating if we should go to the EU sector and all the white papers that
we
has
can
been.
Go and ask what's the EU AI strategy, or then we are done with this and we leave it.
Yeah. I'm not sure. What do you think? I think you should leave it up to Sala if we want to go to EU or not.
We want to lift the AI strategy to the EU level as well. A couple of minutes. Do we have a view on this?
Maybe a couple of minutes.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, my short feeling is that the EU is focusing very much on the ethical implications.
Yeah, really.
And I think in some sense that's really good because it brings it up onto the table, and potentially that could be what makes the EU AI sphere okay, and maybe survive competition even, because there's something to be said about ethical implications.
But we have talked a lot about the AI divide to try to understand what it really means for society. When we have some superpowers and if we sort of highlight the investments and the number of research papers coming out, or like where the real knowledge is, and there are some different agendas being driven. You know, in one agenda in China, the agenda is like quite different, corporate America, and to find then, you know, how do we build Europe as part of the future, and how do we build our societies to be, you know, to shrink the AI divide. And we talk about all the stuff around, do we need a European cloud, or, you know.
I mean, just to paint a picture a bit what we mean with AI divide, and then to hear what you think about, you know, how can we do it from a Swedish and European point of view. And one view that a lot of people are speaking about is that US and China are so far ahead, and it's no point, as you said before, to even try because,
go home and die.
And that's, of course, a really, really strange attitude to have.
And we think it's really scary, right? Because it's segregating the world in a very scary way.
But the AI divide can be defined, I think, differently. I think it's wrong to say it's like the whole country of US or the whole country of China that is leading. It's really rather the tech giants. It's the Google, the Facebook, the Microsoft, the Amazons. Or
what do we call
Alibaba,
it now? We don't call it, we got a new...
GAFA, or the latest is...
Fat Man.
No,
Fat Man. Have you heard the new one?
Yeah, Fat Man. Yeah, right.
So what's the acronym for the tech giants? Fat Man. Yeah. Facebook...
Tencent,
Alphabet, Alibaba, you know, but it's just like I don't know if it was a joke, but Fat Man is the new one.
There's been a number of acronyms for the tech giants, in short, and keeps coming new ones all the time. But it is a big problem. I don't think people realize how far ahead the tech giants are, and the Google and the Facebook and the Tencents and Alibabas and Baidu and whatnot. And then the question is really, what should we do about it? And one way, you can show what the most valuable companies in the world are today, and it is the tech giants, of course. In even if you take any kind of sector, oil, finance, and whatnot, it is the tech giants that are the most valuable companies of all. But then if you look at Europe, and you take the top 10 most valuable companies, there is not a single tech company. It's oil companies, it's finance companies, it's automotive companies, but no like tech company in that sense. And it's a bit scary. And I think we need to do something. For one, do you agree with the concept of AI divide and that it potentially is a problem, you would say?
Yes, I agree. I saw today in Financial Times that Facebook has been sued by I think it was 46 states in the US for violating sort of a lot of laws when it comes to, the acquisitions of WhatsApp and Instagram. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens there because they have such an information advantage to any other company in the world, and the question is whether that's a good thing. And I think it's good that they're finally starting to look into that from like a legal standpoint. The US is very different from the EU because the legal landscape is defined by verdicts. And it's not like here where we spend strokey beard time thinking about what kind of law we need for this area. And then we have consensus and then we have a very different way of working in the EU.
And I think, for one, it's the antitrust kind of case where you have these big companies, but I think it's more than that. It's like a democracy kind of question when a company can direct basically the opinions of a lot of people like Facebook can, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I met with Christopher Wiley a couple of years ago at this event, and I sort of attacked him with 1,000 questions.
Christopher Wiley.
I think he was a bit scared by me. He was the head of analytics at Cambridge Analytica.
Oh, great!
And he
fun position to have.
Yeah, he decided to go.
And in the middle of it all, you had the opportunity to talk to.
No, it was after. He resigned. So he worked at that time. He was working for H&M as like a researcher for sort of identifying what they shouldn't be doing.
What they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. And I think that's really cool. But he had a lot of really interesting opinions about that. Like, because I asked him, does he think that GDPR has changed the landscape for these tech companies? And he said no.
No. And we say the same. GDPR is actually right now increasing the AI divide because if you're super knowledgeable, you know how to work around it very professional. And you the intent you can circumvent the intent.
The big tech giants have the legal resources. They have the
and
infrastructure.
The competence
so
how to do it.
They know how to comply with the regulation, but most other companies don't.
And the rest who doesn't really know what it means, just get scared. And it's really only GDPR is benefiting fat man more than anyone.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I think so. Yeah, I remember a Finnish-Swedish CEO for another bank saying that he loves regulations because it sort of it kills competition. I'm not going to name his name because that would be probably slander.
But when back now, context and AI divide, what should Europe do? And from this perspective, what is our AI strategy all about? Yeah. And it, to some degree, maybe we should use pumping money to build the European cloud. I don't know. But then we say, come on, you will never be able to do it in the same way. So what is the AI strategy in Europe? What it should be, and what is really important? I don't know.
Yeah, I think one central part is the infrastructure. That is somewhere that we're sort of losing to national competition in other nations in the world.
What do you mean, like the cloud vendors? What do you mean with infrastructure?
Yeah. The cloud vendors. What do I mean? The cloud vendors. The sort of computational power doesn't necessarily have to be even a cloud. It can just be like a lot of servers. But
so now we are investing in HPC, right?
Yeah,
in Europe.
Yep.
Interesting choice as well.
Yeah.
And Finland is leading the way there, by the way, with Lumi and the new big data cluster from in Euro HPC.
NVIDIA stuff, right? Or no?
Yes. It's there as well. So it's kind of super part of.
But and here, of course, is HPC the right way to pump money into, or is it something else we should do? Maybe we should build our own big data cloud.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think we could just go all in on Raspberry Pis. We just need to be really smart at coding the algorithms, and then we can build really sustainable algorithms.
Federated learning.
Yeah.
And a couple of ideas that have been floating around with some of the guests is like, well, maybe we can't compete on the general public cloud, but maybe we could make super niche the best of the best for automotive, or the best of the best type of, here's the place you want to be if you're in pharma, something like this.
Yeah.
So you take the public cloud, but you make it something else that fits sort of Europe.
Yeah.
Just to make another play.
But seriously, if you were to think about, perhaps not SEB, because it's a big company, they have their own infrastructure and AI strategy, which most other companies don't. So they're a good example in that case. But for a lot of other companies that want to get started with data and AI, there are a lot of problems, just access to data or infrastructure to process it properly and whatnot, and all the knowledge needed to actually know what to do and how to build models and so forth. So if you were to guide, you've been working with this for a long time, and if someone wants to get started quickly, how would you recommend like a Swedish company to get more onto track to be data-driven and AI-driven?
Good question. I think I would recommend identifying individuals that are already doing machine learning in their spare time, because I can guarantee you that there's at least one person in your organization, no matter how small, because it's so much fun.
Yeah.
And then I would start small. I think the key is to not start with all of your data and building the full infrastructure and all the solutions that you need. Quite often it's like the simplest first model that gives the most.
I love you. We love you already. And it's how can we get the enterprises to understand, start with one use case and try to understand that data. And everybody who thinks they can take all data at once, they don't understand what they're going through. Yeah. You will never succeed. Yeah. Why do we do it in the big enterprises? Why do we start in this way?
I think it's because it's the way that enterprises used to be driven. It was like this huge ship, and then in order you needed to turn the whole ship.
so to do lean startup or to do innovation inside a big enterprise, how to think about that, how to make that machinery scale.
Yeah.
And, I love it's so common that you hear other companies say, we need to first get the hold of analytics. We need to first build the pipelines. We need to first have the dashboards. We can't use AI until
I need to clean all data before we start. Good luck with that, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah, I have this small funky data here. I'll come back in 2 years. We don't know what it's about, but it's probably important.